In late September 480 BCE, in the narrow waters of the Saronic Gulf near Athens, a sea battle changed the course of Greek history. Salamis still matters because it showed how geography, leadership, and timing can outweigh sheer numbers. Years earlier, the Persian Empire had expanded across Asia Minor and beyond, while many Greek city-states argued, allied, or hesitated. Athens and Sparta did not trust each other easily. Yet both faced a far larger imperial threat. Athens had been evacuated, its people crowded onto ships, nearby islands, and temporary shelters. The city's survival now depended less on walls than on the oars of ordinary citizens and the decisions of exhausted leaders. On the Persian side, the campaign was led by a king's authority and a vast command structure, supported by regional allies and subject forces. The Greek coalition, smaller and divided, had to choose whether to stand or scatter. The main Greek naval weapon was the trireme, a long light warship driven by rows of oars and designed for speed and maneuver. Victory depended on disciplined crews, tight formations, and commanders who could read the water. These ships were impressive, but they were also fragile, crowded, and demanding to operate. A fleet needed food, fresh water, repairs, and morale, and every day of waiting strained both supplies and nerves. The Greek commanders gathered under pressure, arguing over whether to fight in the narrow strait or retreat to wider waters. Some wanted caution, but the coastline itself seemed to force a decision. Persian forces advanced after earlier successes on land, and their confidence was high. Yet the long supply line, the size of the fleet, and the need to coordinate many crews made the campaign harder than it appeared. The route to Salamis brought both fleets into a confined maritime corridor between islands and mainland. For the Greeks, that narrow passage offered a chance to neutralize Persian numbers and protect one another's flanks. The battlefield was shaped by cliffs, shoals, and shifting currents, with little room to turn. Weather could change the balance quickly, and even a light wind could complicate rowing and steering. Greek leaders understood that the strait would compress the fight into a series of close encounters. The Persian plan, by contrast, relied on overwhelming presence and the expectation that the enemy would break under pressure. Before dawn, tension spread through the fleet as oarsmen, sailors, and marines waited in silence. The sea was not calm for long, and the first movements came with the light. As the fleets closed, the Greeks held formation in the narrow water, while the Persians advanced into a space that grew more crowded by the minute. The opening phase was less a single charge than a tightening trap. The first pressure point came when maneuvering room vanished. Ships behind could not easily support those ahead, and the sea lane became a bottleneck where hesitation mattered as much as courage. Greek crews, trained for tighter coordination, used the confined water to keep their line steadier. Persian ships, larger in number, struggled to deploy all at once, and the advantage of scale began to weaken. At the decisive moment, the battle's geometry favored the defenders. A narrow channel turned the contest into a contest of timing and spacing, not simply of fleet size. Some Persian vessels were forced to slow or turn, and the line behind them became harder to coordinate. The Greek fleet seized on the disorder, pressing forward while the enemy struggled to reset. The fight did not unfold as a simple rout at first. Instead, it became a dense maritime struggle in which visibility, noise, and congestion made command difficult on both sides. As the day wore on, the Persian formation lost coherence in the narrow waters. Greek ships, better able to pivot within the channel, found openings that the larger fleet could not easily close. The breakthrough came when confusion spread faster than orders. Once the front line bent, the rest of the fleet had to react in cramped space, and reaction itself became a liability. For the Greeks, this was the moment to press the advantage without losing discipline. They had to attack just enough to exploit disorder, but not so much that they broke their own formation. The Persian side faced the burden of scale in reverse. More ships meant more confusion in a confined space. What looked like strength on an open sea became a weakness inside the strait. By late morning, the battle's balance had shifted decisively. The Greeks had not won by brute force alone, but by forcing the enemy to fight where numbers could not be fully used. As cohesion broke down, some crews turned to escape routes while others tried to regroup. The narrow waters made every movement visible and every mistake costly. The immediate aftermath was a field of damaged hulls, drifting wreckage, and exhausted sailors. Even without graphic detail, the scale of strain was unmistakable in the silence after the noise. For Athens, the victory was not only military but psychological. The city had been emptied, threatened, and humbled, yet the fleet's success gave its people a future to return to. For the Persian campaign, Salamis forced reconsideration. A powerful expedition could still dominate much of the region, but the hope of a quick naval decision had been shaken. In the years that followed, Greek confidence at sea grew, and Athens emerged as a stronger maritime power. That shift helped shape alliances, trade, and the balance of influence across the Aegean. The battle also became a symbol, retold by later writers as a turning point in the struggle between freedom and empire. Historians, however, remind us that the reality was more complex than a single heroic story. Some details remain debated, including exact ship counts, command roles, and how much of the outcome was planned versus improvised. Ancient sources are valuable, but they are not always complete or perfectly consistent. Modern archaeology and seafaring studies help test the old accounts, yet the sea itself preserves only fragments. Much of what we know comes from comparing terrain, texts, and practical knowledge of ancient ships. The place today is quieter, but the geography still speaks clearly. Narrow channels, sheltered coves, and the open reach toward Athens make it easy to understand why commanders fought so hard here. Standing on the shore, one can imagine the pressure of hundreds of oars, shouted orders, and ships crowding the same water. The landscape has changed less than the world that once depended on it. Salamis endures because it is both a military event and a human one. It was a battle fought by frightened crews, determined leaders, and a city trying to survive a moment of extreme danger. Its legacy is not that victory is easy, but that choices made under pressure can reshape history. In the narrow waters near Athens, the smaller fleet found a way to turn constraint into strength. That is why Salamis remains studied more than 2 millennia later. It offers a clear lesson in how terrain, preparation, and leadership can matter as much as raw power.